Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Clay. Thank you for tuning in. 2020 is basically here now, which means it's a perfect opportunity to look back on what happened during this past decade. And what did happen was just unrivaled success for the Chicago Blackhawks. It was a decade which saw the franchise enter it with 3 Stanley Cups to its name and exit with 3 more Stanley Cups. That's just extremely impressive, just a crazy amount of success. It was by far the best decade in Hawks history and was the best decade that probably will ever be in Chicago Blackhawks history. And to have that much success over a full decade, you know you had to have a lot of good players play for the franchise. And so when you think about naming an all-decade team, especially for this past decade, you'd think it would be kind of tough. But for me, personally, this was really easy. This was a walk in the park. And quite honestly, I think you could probably already guess who I'm going to name. But let's name them anyway. Starting at center, no-brainer, right? Captain for the entire decade, first-line center for the entire decade, 3 Stanley Cups, Conn Smythe, Selke, NHL Top 100, right? Power play, penalty kill, doesn't matter. He does it all. Talking about Jonathan Toews, nobody else was even close for this. Moving on to the wing, it's his partner in crime, easy peasy. 3 Stanley Cups, Calder Trophy, Hart Trophy, Art Ross, Ted Lindsay, Conn Smythe, arguably the best American-born hockey player ever. The dangles, the snipes, the OT cup-clinching goals. It's showtime, baby. Patrick Kane is on this all-decade team. Once again, these were no-brainer picks. These 2 players brought this franchise back from the dead. I mean, might as well call them the Chicago Zombie Hawks. Now, on the other side, we have a winger who doesn't really have the individual awards, but he's still going to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. We got a guy who played over 500 games with the Hawks, over 400 points in those games, 3 Stanley Cups, and quite frankly, the Hawks don't win a single Stanley Cup without him. Complete 200-foot presence on the ice, one of the best defensive forwards ever to play. Yeah, we're talking about Marian Hossa, and I know Hossa played on the right wing just like Patrick Kane, but all-decade teams don't care about left and right wingers. They just care about wingers, and quite frankly, these 2 were the best wingers of the decade for the Chicago Blackhawks. Moving back to defense now, might as well start off with the guy who's just not human. Talking about a guy who's played over 1,100 games, won 3 Stanley Cups, 2 Norris trophies, Conn Smythe, a guy who's been the alternate captain for the entire decade. We're talking about Duncan Keith. He could play 60 minutes a game if you let him, but obviously you don't because you want to give the rest of the league a chance. But Duncan Keith, obvious pick here. And then in the other defensive slot, much like you had the partners in crime up front, you have the partners in crime in the back. Part of all 3 Stanley Cups here the entire decade. May not have been an alternate captain for most of the decade, but he was definitely a leader in the locker room for the entire decade. Big body, physical presence with a bone-shattering shot. Brent Seabrook, easy pick for this all-decade team. And then finally, you got the goaltender, and even though you don't really have much of a choice at this position, it's still a worthy choice for an all-decade team. You have Corey Crawford, who was a brick wall for 2 Stanley Cup runs, a brick wall in many other games. He's won 2 Williams and Jennings trophies. He's one of, if not the most underrated goaltender of the decade. This guy, yeah, there's not a whole lot of other choices here, but this guy definitely deserves to be on this list. So there you have it, the all-decade team for the Chicago Blackhawks. Like I said, pretty easy to name, even though there were so many other great players to play for this franchise over this past decade. Guys who won 3 cups, like Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Patrick Sharp. Guys who won 2 cups, like Dave Bolin and Andrew Shaw and Brandon Saad and Johnny Oduya, and countless other players who were big parts of those cup runs and big parts of the reason why the Hawks had so much success in this decade. But when you have a franchise that was so successful and that had such a defined core set of players, 5 players and 1 goalie essentially, it just makes it super easy to name an all-decade team. So there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate that as always. But most importantly, stay safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you in the new year.